Hello, today let's talk about Diptyque. I happen to have a discovery set that I bought a few years ago, but honestly I have not used it very much. I feel like I need to make a video to give it some proper attention, and today is the day. I'm thinking of dividing this into two videos and talking about each fragrance one by one, alongside my thoughts, reflections of the aesthetics and design philosophies of Diptyque. The most interesting thing about Diptyque to me is not that it makes you smell aggressive, sexy, or very clearly declares who. Its perfume rarely makes me feel a strong sense of sexual tension or charm. They are more like fragmented and portable memories, spaces, landscapes, or even a slightly literary imagination. So when I smell Diptyque, I often cannot expect that very dramatic development of top, heart, and base notes. It's more like a small painting, not high definition photography, not realistic paintings, but a small size watercolor or a travel sketch with blank space, with air and brave brush strokes, and a little bit left unsaid. This is also why I think Diptyque is very special and has its own style when it portrays nature. Its nature is not the almost zoological observation of nature, and it is not that dense, full-bodied, material-rich nature. Diptyque's nature is more like a bouquet by the window or an open botanical book. There is nature, but it is nature that has already been seen, arranged, and remembered by someone with cultural refinement. This is why many of its perfumes often have a kind of like poetry quality. It is not the truly chaotic, growing, decaying, entangled plant life in the soil. It is the way plant looks after they have been picked and placed in a vase or inside a room or in the mind of a traveler. That is what makes it feel so literary to me. Diptyque's sense of refinement rarely comes from proving itself loudly. It does not really like making perfumes extremely dense, extremely sweet, or extremely sexy or diffusive. Even with subjects like tuberose, rose, and sandalwood, which can easily be made full and heavy, Diptyque often handles these materials with restraint. And this restraint gives it a kind of literary temperament, a little old-fashioned, a little casual, a little intellectually loose, but still very carefully composed overall. And of course, Diptyque's problem also lies here. It's beautiful, but not dangerous enough, not challenging enough. It rarely truly loses control. Its nature is always nature filtered through aesthetics. Its foreign memories are also often softened, privatized, and aestheticized. So if you love perfumes that are especially dark, animalic, violent, or conceptually challenging, then Diptyque may feel too refined. But if what you enjoy is plants, light, travel memories, and an aesthetic that does not try too hard, then it can be very charming. I like to begin with the first 5 fragrances in this discovery set. They're Dusson, Eau de Sens, Philosykos, Eau Rose. Sorry for my pronunciation. I do not want to make an ordinary ranking or recommendation list. What I like to do is to treat them as cases of how Diptyque looks at nature, memory, and spaces. Okay, so let's start with the first one. The first one I like to talk about is this Dusson. And Dusson really represents the way Diptyque handles florals, because tuberose as a subject in perfumery can very easily become a scent of the body. Traditional tuberose often emphasizes sensuality, fullness, fleshiness, and maybe the night representing by white flowers. But Dusson does not go in that direction. It certainly has the white floral scent of tuberose, as well as a little softness from orange blossom and jasmine, and a coolness like humid air and maybe sea breeze, but it does not turn tuberose into direct bodily seduction. The white flowers here in this fragrance are not flowers pressing against your face. They're more like flowers slowly emerging from humid air. The floral scent has presence, but it is separated from you by a mist of time. When I smell Dusson, I do not feel that it is tuberose blooming right in front of me. It feels more like someone many years later remembering the scent of white flowers from the childhood. I feel that these white flowers are drifting from far away. You can smell them, but you cannot grasp them. Its beauty lies precisely in this sense of distance. And this is very Diptyque. It takes a flower that could have been very bodily and desire-driven and turns it into a private memory and emotion with a sense of distance. Okay, the second one is Eau de Sens. And the name Eau de Sens itself is very Diptyque. It does not directly call itself orange blossom or bitter orange. It is called water of the senses. In other words, it does not only want to tell you that there is orange blossom, there is bitter orange. It wants to express a state in which the senses are opened or refreshed. The orange blossom in this fragrance is not the very soft, white, gentle, bridal orange blossom in the traditional sense. It is brighter with a slight bitterness and grainness. What you smell is not simply the flower, but also the leaves, the branches, forming one scent together. The moment it is sprayed, it is very bright, as if sunlight has struck the underside of leaves, illuminating green and white at the same time. Then it slowly becomes a little woody with a slight shadow of patchouli. So it is not just a pretty orange blossom scent. In this set, Eau de Sens is the one that gives me the strongest feeling of the sense being brightened. But this feeling is also, again, very Diptyque. It is fragmentary, a moment in which perception is refreshed and illuminated rather than something narrative. The third one, Philosykos. Philosykos is probably one of the works that best represent Diptyque because it is one so popular on the market. It is not a fig fragrance about the fruit. It is more like a fig tree. It is actually a very important and creative method for Diptyque to create their perfumes. Many fruity perfumes make fruit sweet, delicious, and appetizing, as if what you're smelling is a fruit that has already been picked or even one that has already entered the dessert system. But Philosykos does not do that. It takes you under the tree. You smell the greenness of fig leaves, the coconut milk quality of the fruit, and the woody texture of the branches. What it really presents is not one fragrant material, but the whole environment of a living organism. The most beautiful thing about this perfume is that it feels natural and refined at the same time. It is not a fig tree in wild soil, but a fig tree filtered through an artist, a traveler, or a botanical notebook. You can still smell the greenness and milky sap of a real plant, but it never becomes rough, sticky, or overly realistic. It is almost like a minimalist Mediterranean plant sketch. This is why, even though it is already very famous, I still do not think it feels outdated. It established a way of looking at plants in perfumery. They do not only take the most pleasing, most edible, sweetest part of it, but smell it as a whole. Okay, the fourth one, Le Bain Shadow in the Water. And the name of this fragrance is also very, very beautiful and also very accurate. It contains rose, blackcurrant leaf, and the tart, grain, damp, slightly dark vegetal feeling. It is humid, it is graying, slightly dark by the water, and then there is rose. But the rose does not make a grand entrance. It is surrounded by green leaves, shadows, and moisture. And Le Bourdelot has a Diptyque's strong sense of landscape. So it is not a close-up of a rose, but a fragment of a garden. The camera is not pressed right up against the petals. It pulls back slightly, allowing you to see leaves, branches, humidity, and the places where the light darkens. Traditional rose perfumes often turn rose into femininity, romance, luxury, but in this fragrance, the rose is dragged by blackcurrant leaf into a greener, taller, wetter space. The rose here is more like a rose bush after rain, where the leaves are even more present than the actual flower. You first smell that tart green quality of blackcurrant leaf, sharp, a little damp, even slightly astringent. The rose is not the protagonist here at the very beginning. It is more like a red shadow inside the moisture. So this perfume makes a very interesting gesture. It removes the flower from human romantic imagination and place it back into the plant world. And rose is no longer only a symbol of romance and love, it becomes part of a garden ecology again. What I like about this fragrance is that it has this floral scent, but the floral scent is not packaged as a gift. It feels more like actually walking into a garden on a cloudy day, touching wet leaves with your fingers and only then realizing that, oh, there is a rose beside you. So the last one in this video would be Eau Rose, the water of rose. And quite like the last one, this perfume does not make rose thick or dramatic. It is not a rose of velvet, lipstick, honey, red wine, or oriental spices. It is more minimal, transparent, and more watery. Again, rose carries too much weight in perfume history. Rose is almost completely written over by human culture. And what this fragrance does is like a diptyque style cleansing of the rose. It temporarily removes the heavily symbolism from rose and returns it to a lighter, more transparent, more everyday state. It has the texture of two kinds of rose, a little lychee-like juicy fleshiness and a little herbal greenness from chamomile. And this greenness is also important because it prevents it from becoming merely a rose water. It also has a small edge of the plant itself. And when I smell it, I think of a single rose beside a glass of clear water on the table in an empty room. The rose is simply placed there, the air is clean, the room is filled with natural light, and there is still water on the petals. So the charm of this fragrance is not intensity. It makes rose breathable, approachable, and everyday-like, because it does not add drama to this rose. It relieves rose from its burden. So by the time we arrive at this rose fragrance, we have already gone through a very important half of this Diptyque discovery set. The first 5 are almost all about plants: tuberose, orange blossom, fig, rose, and blackcurrant leaf. But the way Diptyque handles plants is very interesting. What moves me about Diptyque is that it understands blank space, or the so-called negative space. It is like someone who knows how to paint watercolor, who knows where to place their brush stroke and where to let the paper breathe on its own. So that is all for this episode. We will continue smelling the rest of the discovery set in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.